Thank you, Dan. It really is an honor to be up here again today. Internetix is going on now for 16 years. It's absolutely amazing. I'd really like to welcome all of you. I know it's a big thing in today's very hectic lives that we lead, to give up 8 hours of your day, some of you might be a little bit less, to be with us and listen to our stories, listen to what's happening in the world of the internet is a big thing. So we really like to thank you for attending. What is today about? Well, it's about many things. It's not only about the internet. And internet is obviously the main thread of what we're up here to speak about. But it's about many other things. It's about math. It's about science. It's about sociology. It's about society. It's about robotics. It's about artificial intelligence. And you're going to be hearing a lot today about all these topics. What's also amazing is that if you remember last year, or the year before rather, when we spoke about the world of the internet and what's happening, we spoke about what's happening in so many different industries and the impact technology is having in all our different industries, retail, finance, and so forth. But 2 years ago, it was amazing that it was centered around a specific industry. What you'll hear today, and I think it's an amazing and a very exciting journey we're on, is that it's the combination of all our industries that are coming together to make the world work better. And if you look at some of the trends globally, and MIT, I think, are one of the authorities, and they always yearly come up with what their breakthrough technologies are for 2015, and some of them up there, I'm sure you'll see, are quite foreign to us. But some really, really exciting breakthrough technologies. And what you will see there is that some of them are impacting so many different industries. Not only our specific ones, but threaded together in so many different industries. And I think that's very, very exciting. But what you'll also notice, and it's a big, big theme today, when you hear about that question mark after, technology, sweet technology, is what is the impact on our society? The impact on our society, sociology, is a big theme today for us in terms of what you'll be hearing in this particular conference. And some of these technologies are here with us today. I was in London just last year. I used Apple Pay. And I think it's going to be a lot more pervasive across the world. And there's many similar platforms that I think we'll all be using. You probably don't know this, but Google Loon is existing today in parts of Africa. They're spreading connectivity, very low cost, across the African continent, very exciting. But some of those breakthrough technologies are going to impact us in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Some of them I almost don't understand. The internet of DNA, I think that's going to have profound impact. Robotics, we know there's a lot happening in that space. Artificial intelligence. So it's an exciting journey that we're on. And we ended last year, I think, with a very big bang in terms of technology. But this year, I think, has been no different. It's one of the reasons why we brought Internetix a little bit forward, to coincide with some of these events. You saw in the beginning of the year, the Computer Electronics Show was a massive success. Some great innovations. We'll speak about some of them now. Just last week, I think, the Mobile World Conference in Barcelona, the world of mobility. I mean, it is a mobile world. Some unbelievable announcements. We'll speak about them today as well. And then somewhere in the middle of those two conferences, one that we don't really speak about in technology conferences is something that happens in Davos, called the World Economic Forum. It's normally where very bright, clever, rich guys, well, clever and bright is arguable in that particular conference, where they get together and they talk about what's happening around the world. And I want to just talk a little bit about that today, because there were some very interesting things that we saw that came out of the World Economic Forum this year. Their central theme was the fourth industrial revolution. And what was quite interesting about that theme is that in every single panel, technology was a main thread, and the discussions were how technology in that particular panel was going to impact big business, economies, and big labor at a global scale. And that's the world we, I think, all living in. And again, I think that's very exciting in terms of what's happening. But why is that exciting for us? I mean, the fourth industrial kind of revolution, well, it's characterized by new technologies and new approaches in merging or bringing together the digital, the physical, and the biological world together to transform something which they state is fundamentally going to transform humankind. Now, when we talk about humans and technology, I think there's a lot of good and a lot of bad. There's a lot of positives, and the bulk of this conference will be a lot about the positives. But there's a lot of negatives when we deal with our technologies. And I think what we've got to be thinking about together, collectively, is what is our responsibility? What is the social impact? Right? What is the moral and ethical issues that come about when we talk about things like artificial intelligence, biotechnology? Things today, like the Internet of Things, which I know occupies a lot of our minds, and some people saying it's happening, some people saying it's not. It absolutely is happening. Things like robotics, which is happening. What are the moral and ethical issues? And we'll speak a lot about that today, all right? Because we do have a collective responsibility for that. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm a big believer that the internet can and will make the world work better. It's part of our purpose. It's what we do. But it's what we do with it that actually counts. And a little bit later, I'll speak about things like extremism and cyberbullying, which has got a big impact in terms of our industry. So in terms of the theme today, technology, sweet technology, the first thing I'm sure that kind of springs to mind is, for all of us, is home sweet home. And, for me, there's probably no better illustration of home sweet home. I'm just trying to get this thing to click through. There we go. There's supposed to be a big impact, that picture. But home sweet home is an environment for most of us that is a sense of, where we get comfort, a form of kind of stability. For some of us, a lot of safety, where we actually get home and the pressures of day-to-day are kind of not with us. But there's a lot that's changed in our world when we get home today. And if I probably put this up 10 years ago or 5 years ago, you probably thought it was a design or an architecture, technical architecture of what typically sits in our office. But this is exactly what's happening in our homes today, like it or not. It's a very connected environment. And there absolutely is a blur today about what we do at work, or what we bring at work, what we do at home, and the work that we actually do bring at home. And there is that blurring. We've got a very small business always on, and it's amazing the growth that it's having in terms of the impact for Wi-Fi connectivity in South Africa. We did a survey just late last year. We just asked some of our users, and we normally roll this out in public places, in hospitals, in shopping centers, airports. And we asked some of our users, where would you like to see more of Always On? And we were expecting the usual, in the library, in a coffee shop, in my local, shopping center. 70% of the users said, I'd love you to bring Always On into the home. And the reason for that is because they're bringing work home. How many devices do you think you've got connected in your house? And most of you might be in that house for 30 years. You think, well, there's not much tech in my house. I guarantee you there's at least 30, 40, 50 devices that are connected into your Wi-Fi platform at home today. And it's got massive impact, I think, in our environments. And it made me think of a survey that was done several years ago in Italy. And they asked a few people around the world, selective audience, men and women, of what they believed or what product they believed has had the biggest impact in our lives in this last century. And they hypothesized that it would probably be one of these three. Antibiotics, massive impact over the last 50 years in our world from a health perspective. Plastics, It's all around us. You know, the oil industry has fundamentally changed the way we do things. The personal computer, quite close to our lives, you know, I think has had profound impact. But it was none of these. And it wasn't an obvious one. Well, you might look at it now and say, well, it is very obvious. But it was the common old washing machine that was developed probably about 30, 40 years ago. And it had a massive impact on our industry, not because of the technology. Sure, it did a lot about the health and hygiene in the home. If you look at just electricity patterns and water patterns in terms of grids, over a 10-year period since it was launched, it actually changed the way urban life evolved. But the biggest impact it had was on society, was on the relationships people had, and certainly the relationships within the home, the family structure. The role of the woman in the home changed. And a lot's been studied around this for 30, 40 years. The role of the man, the impact on children, the impact on going out, not being homebound. Massive, massive impact on simple appliance brought into the home. And every single device that came after that, and there are many in our houses today, from the toaster to the microwave to the freezer, and we don't really think about it. And absolutely, the innovation over the last 30, 40 years in terms of efficiency, in terms of making them smarter, a lot more connected, is there. But each and every single one of them has probably had a more of an impact around society, humankind, and our relationships that we have amongst each other. Now, I swore I wouldn't speak about Uber because I'm sure everybody's going to talk about Uber. They get so much free airtime in every single conference because it's Uber this and it's Uber that. And we did speak about it too, I think 3 years ago and 2 years ago. But I'd like you to think about Uber not because of the tech, not because of that app, and everybody talks about the application, the transport and what it's doing. But I'd like you to think about what it's doing to this country, South Africa. And believe it or not, we were one of the early adopters. And a lot of people said, there's no ways Uber will work in South Africa. Security, it's the last place. Before in many parts of Europe and the so-called first world, all right, Uber was launched in South Africa. All right? But don't think about the tech. Just think about the family structure and what it's doing to us as a society. So many of my friends, 4 or 5 years ago, their biggest concern was security and their children and getting them out of the house and what am I going to do? And they're homebound. And we are quite a homebound society, South Africans. And it's changing the fabric of the way we operate as a country. This is a simple tech that's changing relationship. It's changing family structures. It's getting us out there. And it's changing our perception very slowly and subtly around the security of our country, which is a big, big, big issue for all of us. So many friends that I've got got daughters and sons that are 15, 16 years old, and they're so comfortable to let them go out late at night because they know Uber's there to bring them back home. Major change in terms of what technology is doing to our societies. One of the best examples, and again, I'm sure it's going to be spoken about, is television. The simple appliance of the television at home. And quite the reverse paradigm in terms of what the washing machine did, in terms of changing the behavior of women in society. The quite reverse, what the television is doing, is that the user, all right, is dictating how he wants to consume content and changing the way media owners are actually delivering content. And it's moved from this, and you can imagine at home now, 5 to 10 years ago, it's happening in my house. This very fixed, shared environment, almost dictated to what you're going to see and when you're going to see it, to a very personal, and a very mobile experience. Pretty much anywhere. Just 3 weeks ago, there was a report that was sent out that the tipping point for teenagers, particularly elder teenagers, had already been crossed from moving away from that old broadcast world to a much more of an online world. I think it happened a lot earlier, but they say globally that tipping point has been absolutely reached. And I see it again, as I said, in my home. I was very lucky to go away on holiday in December with my family. And still the best nanny is the television. I must just tell you, I've got young kids, the best nanny is the television. My kids watched a lot of television on holiday, and we never turned on the TV once. Not once. They are very spoiled. I must say they've each got a little iPad. But at a very young age, they personalized what they wanted to watch. And they were all watching, because they're different ages, they were all watching something different. So when they come into the workforce, their mindset is going to be very different towards the way they consume technology. BBC Three, I don't know if you know this, BBC Three, it's one of the popular channels in the UK, has been taken off air, off broadcast today. You can only get BBC Three online via streaming, and you can quite start customizing that experience. I hope some of our media owners are listening to this in our environment. And we're seeing that. We've got we run a large content delivery network, and sometimes we're not allowed to talk about what's happening in our threads and in our networks. But we're seeing video, particularly since the launches of the Showmaxes and the Netflixes and the on-tap TVs who are running on our environment, and you will not believe the growth of these particular environments. On a minute-to-minute basis, we're seeing that grow in our environments. How are media owners thinking about this? It really is changing their paradigm. And just to let you know, one of the biggest growth areas is actually DSTV. DSTV online, by the way, in that particular environment. So a lot of people are downloading the app, and that's the way they're viewing DSTV. But I think it's going to challenge, all the owners in terms of that. And you'll be hearing a lot about that today in our conference in terms of these areas. Now, spoke about the Computer Electronics Show. And we've spoken about some of these old tech, if I can call it, appliances at home. But can you imagine the impact that these are going to have in our lives? The smart TV, the smart fridge. I'll give you a little illustration just now around it. The Segway robot. I know a lot of the Discovery guys are quite excited. Discovery, if you remember Discovery, are quite excited about that because they can attach the Fitbit or their iPhone on that thing to just kind of walk around the house so you can get your coffee. The U-bot, virtual reality. It's a big, big theme. In the Mobile World Conference, I actually found this picture quite funny. They actually look quite funny. Everybody's kind of in a conference in their own world, through virtual reality. Some people have got their darts, this augmented reality. I think you'll hear quite a lot about it with our guest speaker. But it's happening. Modularized telephones, where you can play with it and actually do it in a different way. Now, why is that important? Why are we talking about it? Well, that fourth industrial revolution that we speak about does highlight that. It highlights that every single person, billions of people around the world, in their hands, right, with a very, very connected, no matter where you are, device, with unprecedented power, computing power, unprecedented storage, and also unprecedented access to knowledge, which they never had before, I believe is going to create and is creating an absolutely limitless world from a possibilities perspective. And this is what we think about every single day. And I know you think about it as well in your particular industries around what's happening. And that's exciting. And if you couple that or throw on top of that some of those themes that we spoke about, those breakthrough technologies of MIT, storing energy, quantum computing, robotics, biological sciences into the mix, I think we're in for a very, very exciting journey. One that we need to be very cautious, but certainly a very exciting journey in terms of the world we live in. The North American Motor Show, also earlier this year, also showcased some really new technologies. Some people are being very bold in their predictions. In the next 2-3 years, large parts of the US will have driverless cars. Very bold. 2-3 years. Drones, they're saying will be with us in the next 2-3 years en masse. Virtual assistants. I'm looking for that virtual assistant. So I hope my PA is not here. I should be quite angry with that comment. But it's here. The amount of tech and investment in artificial intelligence is unprecedented. The next Google search, the amount of investment Google search is putting just in search, something that it's a 12-year-old technology, and they're embedding AI into search. Microsoft is playing catch-up. Between virtual reality and AI, that's their biggest investment. They're trying to play catch-up to IBM. So companies that have been with us for many, many years, investing so much in artificial intelligence. And absolutely some of the items and topics we will be speaking about today. Massive impact. For me, the most exciting one is this one. And it's happening in our own cities. If you look at what's happening in Braamfontein and Port City of Cape Town, and we're all part of this journey. It's all our industries that are working together in combination to make this a reality. What's exciting about this is you've got engineers, kind of our world, working with architects, a very different world, working with designers and artists, all right, to make this a reality. And what are they using? They're using computational power, they're using, again, storage, they're using additive manufacturing, material sciences, and they're pioneering, today they are pioneering the way we as consumers will buy products, all right, in this very connected world, in our homes, buildings, and cars that we operate in today. And I think that's very exciting. And I do believe that can and will make the world work better. It absolutely will. So let's play out a few scenarios. You know, things that I think about and we think about every single day. And some of these are realities in terms of what it is. But imagine that you come from a home or a family that's got a history of heart disease. And you go and visit your GP, and he says to you, what I'd like you to do is kind of embed a very small little monitor, you know, with an oversized probably injection that kind of makes you faint, into your arm. It'll use your own thermal energy as power, so it never has to, you know, be taken out and, you know, recharged. And every single second, every minute of your life, this thing will be monitoring your heart. And when it does detect an irregularity, an arrhythmia, some irregular heartbeat, it will send both you, if you just want it to you, and hopefully you got enough battery in your phone at that stage, an alarm telling you better get to an ambulance or you better get to a doctor or a hospital pretty soon. What happens if you're walking down the aisle of your favorite retailer with your trolley, and as you walk past that fridge that's got the milk, your trolley or your basket, the monitor in front of that new age trolley that you've actually got starts vibrating. And a little message pops up in that little monitor and says to you, you've just run out of milk, please buy 2 liters. Now, how did that happen? Well, your fridge at home realized that you've just run out of milk because your son or daughter had just finished it in their kind of last bit of porridge that they had, that you bought 2 days ago. It sent a message to your phone, which clearly knows you're in the retailer, all right? And that's with us today, location-based. It sends the message to your trolley, because your trolley knows that at that particular point in time, you're right in front of that fridge, to tell you that you've run out of milk. You put a smile on your face, you put the milk in your basket, and you buy 50 other items in exactly the same way. And then the biggest stress of your life is, oh my goodness, now I've got to check out the queues and so forth. Technology that was developed in South Africa, and I think patented in South Africa 20 years ago, around very simple checking out. You just literally walk out of the trolley, and by the time you walk out, it scans all your items. By the time you get into your car, email to use your itemized bill of what you just paid. Because again, that Uber experience of your credit card, you know, been provided to your in a secure way, hopefully, to your retailer has already been preloaded. That's technology that's been around for 20 years. Why is it being tested in parts of the world today? Why? Because connectivity, cloud, big data has finally caught up. The limitation wasn't the tech. The limitation was mass connectivity, mass storage, mass computational power that allows this to happen. I'm sure we've got a lot of mammals in the room here today, middle-aged men in Lycra. You can actually be hearing from one of them a little bit later. Some of the amazing work that Dimension Data is doing with one of the teams we've sponsored globally. But imagine you wake up in the morning, you know, you're doing your Sunday morning, normal 100K ride, 30Ks to go, because it's rained the night before, your back tire slips under you, you're knocked out unconscious. Well, the accelerometer, which is attached to your helmet, all right, will firstly detect that you've been knocked. It'll send a message to your bike to see that it's still around, and which it is, and it's not moving, which is hopefully not. It'll firstly send an alarm which is not deactivated within the first 5 seconds, because you're knocked unconscious, so you won't be able to deactivate it. And it'll send alarms to the hospital, to all the preloaded contacts on your phone in terms of saying, you need some attention. It'll also send a message to the traffic light a kilometer away to warn drivers that there's an accident ahead. It'll probably sound a loud alarm around you for hopefully a 2-kilometer radius, just in case there are people around that could assist you. These are realities that are around us today. And we're seeing just around us in South Africa, every weekend, there's something like this that's absolutely recorded. Something that I think is quite gimmicky. They've put sensors on the bottom of I'm a coffee addict, the bottom of a saucer. And it detects, as your saucer is getting lighter, that you possibly need a refill. And when it gets to a certain point, it'll send a message to your phone to say, would you like a refill? And you just press one button. It'll send a message to the barista, which is probably just about 5 meters away from you. You could probably told him to actually deliver you your next coffee. Now that's quite gimmicky, but this is very real. Any parts of Europe where there's mass public transport around, one of the biggest source of frustration is you walk down an escalator and everybody kind of hovers around that first carriage, and everybody walks into that first carriage, not knowing, and it's quite sweaty, quite hot, not knowing that 4 or 5 carriages down the same train, it's absolutely empty. So they put sensors in, and all you have to do is register, and it'll tell you which carriage you should go into, which has got the most capacity, it's got 3 seats. Now for us, it's kind of youngsters, it's not too bad. For the elders, for pregnant ladies, that's just such a light relief in terms of having that. And that is being tested today in a lot of these technologies. So technology is absolutely something that is embedded in everything we do. In Africa, what is happening here today? Well, some really exciting stuff in Africa, all right? And I think, we can talk about what's happening in Europe, we can talk about what's happening in the US, but this is an exciting journey for us. It's happening here, right here in our continent. Forbes came up with the entrepreneurs under 30. We're going to hear from one of them today. One of them is here today. Rapaleng, you'll hear her later on today. You must hear what she's doing in the field of education and using technology. Just 3 that I want to quickly speak about. Alan Teff developed an app, a very simple app. In his village, he was alarmed at the high death rate in Cameroon, high death rate in pregnant women. All right, he developed an app, and it's just simple guidance around when your due date is, information about what's happening throughout your pregnancy, connecting the community around you in case something actually happens. A 20% drop in the death rate with a simple app, and his aim is to get it to 5 million people across Cameroon. Catherine Mahugu in Kenya, again, she was just the plight of the poor rural villagers. Every day, getting poorer and poorer. Urbanization is not a reality for a lot of these people. They just can't get to the cities. Developed a very, very simple application, and she does the entire logistics. So she takes all their craftware, she markets it globally to a global audience, all right, gets payment done seamlessly, gets logistics done seamlessly, and these communities are thriving today in Kenya. Almost stopped urbanization. My favorite one, again in Kenya, Joel Mwale, at 14, he suffered from dysentery because his village, Kitale, all right, the dirty water, unhygienic water that they were drinking every day. Dysentery was almost part of their lives. At the age of 16, he happened to visit the Coca-Cola bottling plant, was amazed how they bottle water. So he developed his own, very simple, with condensation, purification, very cheap purification system, using polythene bags. He got it onto trucks that go out into the rural areas, and the dysentery has dropped by drastic amounts in Africa. He got 5,500 euros of funding for this little initiative that he's actually got, and it's growing fantastic. As I said, you'll hear from Rapaleng just now, when our own South Africans, proudly South African, featured in the Forbes under 30 in terms of transforming, using technology and what's happening in our country. And I'd like to end off by thinking our world, how it's changed. It's just 16 years ago that .com, disaster for all of us who can remember it, and how difficult it was for all of us to start business, Just think about if you had a great idea, the complexity of buying a server, installing it, configuring it, finding it a data center, getting it connected, developing it, how you're going to develop it, you've already run out of money. Gone. The idea is gone. And I thought of this little application, Bump, and I saw it featured, and it's an amazing little application. All right? Some guys had a great idea, like a lot of us do, in our own businesses, not only entrepreneur, in our own businesses, and just think how easy it is today. So they had a great idea, they downloaded from Apple the software development kit, all right, for free. They developed it themselves. Sometimes they used offshore. People were willing to help at a very low cost in terms of developing the app. When they needed infrastructure, they reached out to Amazon. Unprecedented, as I said, computing power, storage, testing environment for them at almost zero cost. In terms of marketing it, well, Twitter, Facebook, billion users out there, social media for free, getting the message out there. Distribution platform, Apple, the Apple Store, what Google Play can provide you, mass distribution. For under $1,000, they managed to get it downloaded 1 million times with active users. And it's a simple application of you just bump two phones together and you transform, you share files. $1,000. Just imagine 16 years ago how difficult it was for us to actually do that. And these are technologies that we've all got available today. As I mentioned, these are important topics that we speak about. It's very easy to get hyped up and excited about what these technologies can do. Every single day at IS, and I'm pretty sure all the mobile operators, all the technology companies are being challenged by governments every single day around the openness and the freeness of the internet protocol and what the internet can actually do. Very public case today, the FBI versus Apple, and it's playing out. And I'm sure you've all got views around what's right and wrong. The spirit of the internet absolutely has to thrive. The spirit of openness, the spirit of protecting data for individuals has to thrive. If it doesn't thrive, it'll all go into the dark web. Openness, freeness, all right, and making sure the privacy of all of us is absolutely sacred and protected. It's something we think about every single day, all right? And then it gets even more extreme in terms of our responsibilities. As I said, extremism, we don't support any ideology, but there's extremism around the world. There's cyberbullying around the world. And that's all our collective responsibilities in terms of how we handle that. Because at the end of the day, and I've got to be careful what I say here, we don't only think about the CIO and what's sitting in the CIO's head. We think about the end user today. It is all about the end user. The power we give him, the connectivity we give him, the user experience, which is something new for us, how we give him. It's intuitive. Everything has to be and will be intuitive. If we're going to get to billions of people out there on the African continent, it has to be very intuitive. And that's what those entrepreneurs are doing. They're making it simple and easy to use technology and make it thrive on the African continent. And that is our purpose. Our purpose is, and we believe it, that the internet can and will make the world work better. So I'd like to thank you. Please enjoy the conference. Thanks for making your time. And we really enjoy having you at Internetix. Over to Dan.